in other states, for instance, Mississippi is discussing a bill like this.
Oh, they would love that in Mississippi because we have a large African-American population, but we have a lot of people who don't make a lot of money in Mississippi.
Exactly. So the question is, so it depends on how much money you make. So 30% of the people really can't afford to put 5% of their income into this. So if you're making $7 an hour, which is $15,000 a year, you really can't do it. But if you're making $25,000 a year, which is what the average amount of people in Oregon and California and Illinois are doing, they are putting 5% of their income into the plan. So they will have some money in savings, which they've never had any money in savings before. So this is a really great idea because they never knew where to put their money. I'll tell you another story, if you don't mind.
Please go on. We love your stories.
Okay. So a friend of mine told me how he had worked at a job, and at the end of the job, he had $2,000 in savings, which is a lot at the moment. And he was told by his business they didn't want $2,000. So they gave him $2,000, and he thought he would take it to a firm and ask them, the firm, a financial firm, and the financial firm said, "Ugh, that's too little. I won't take your money." So he thought, that's terrible. So he just spent it. But now he could put it in the Oregon or the California or the Maryland savings plan because they are accustomed to dealing with small amounts of money. Because many of the people who save in those states at this point only have $800 saved because they're just starting small. And they are accustomed to dealing with small amounts of money because they know that even if you only make $25,000 a year, it's good to start saving. Whereas the big banks and the big financial firms and Wall Street, they don't want to deal with small amounts of money. That's what we're trying to do in these state plans.
So let me just stay with the state of Maryland, the state that you know and the state I know, and I know you know possibly many more states than I know, but we both know the state of Maryland. So suppose I'm working in the state of Maryland. So is it that my employer tells me about this, or how do the people know about this?
That is a good question. So it's just starting. It should start in Maryland. It's supposed to start, like, I think July 1st. It's called Maryland Saves. And it's beginning this month. Supposed to be, I would know more about it if I used to be on the board before I went to the Department of Labor. And it starts with businesses. It will start with businesses that volunteer, and then eventually it will start with all businesses in Maryland.
And then the employers will start informing the people, like in Oregon and California and Illinois.
Yes, but if an employee wants to do it, it's through, if an employee wants to hear about it, the employee can go to the employer and say, I want to do it. And then they can put their money into the Maryland Saves bank account.
So let me stop you right there, because I know we have people online all over and I can't see them. But if they are in Delaware, or Illinois, or Oregon, or California, or New Jersey, or Maryland, or I think Colorado places, but that's a way that our people could start educating those people we come in contact with in our different groups. So that's a point for us to do too, is it not?
Yes. What I could have done before we started this, I could have gotten the contacts for each of those states and give to you. But tomorrow, I don't know if I can get it to you tomorrow.
get it out to that. We can get it out to us.
We can get it out to all the contacts in each of those states so the people will know how to get in contact with them. That would be great, because then they can know where to go. And that will help them. And that will be great. There are already 500,000 people who have signed up in the 3 states already. So it's going forward. And interestingly enough, in Oregon, in Colorado and New Mexico, those 2 states are joining together because they think that having 2 states join together, they'll have more assets and they'll be able to have, it'll be more efficient. So eventually it might be that other states will join with them.
And it would earn more interest as it's building up.
Yes, exactly right. So that's one very good idea. I just thought you'd like to know that. So that's one of the things that we're working on. And eventually, just so you know, or people who are listening might want to hear about this, there was a bill in the Build Back Better plan, which didn't get through, as you know, that would have had this done on a national basis. So it would have been in every state, which of course would have been better. But at least the states are doing it. And what is great, if I can boast a little bit about the state plan in Maryland, unless you want to go on to a different subject.
Oh, you take whatever you want to go with us, because you did list 3 areas you were going to go back to.
Well, look, I'll just tell you about what's good about the state plan in Maryland. There were 2 things that I like about it. One, remember because of my suggestion, we're going to do something called a Social Security bridge, which means that we're going to try to get people to delay taking Social Security for a while, because as you know, for every year that you delay taking Social Security, your Social Security payments go up a year. So for instance, if you take it at 70 rather than 62, you get 70% more per month. So the savings that you get, that you use, it's better to take your savings first and then take your Social Security payments. So we're trying to do what is called a Social Security bridge, so that you use your savings first and then take Social Security later. So that's one idea that we're doing in Maryland. And a second idea is we're doing what is called a managed payout. Remember when I talked about how in a pension, you used to get a monthly payment, but in a defined contribution plan, you would just get what is called a lump sum, $20,000, and then you had to figure out how to use it. In Maryland, what we're trying to do is called a managed payout, which is not quite like a pension, but we would say based on what people think you'll probably live another 20 years. So we'll give you X amount per month, so that every month your money will be invested and still make money, and you'll get a monthly payment. So you don't have to worry about how much you should spend each month. So it gives you a bit better peace of mind. And if you need it, you can take it out, but this should give you a peace of mind, and you still can make money off your money.
Sounds interesting. Anytime we can.
I'm trying to be helpful.
Yes.
Anyway, these are ideas that are trying to be helpful in the new world of what is called defined contribution plans. But it might be important. So that's it might be helpful. I can keep talking, but sometimes the problem with me is that I talk because I know this subject really well. I sometimes talk over people's head, and I'm not clear. You know what I mean?
So I'll help you to clarify, but go ahead. What was the other area you wanted to address?
Well,
that
the other area that I'm trying to, so if I'm not clear, you please tell me that I'm being too obscure.
I'll tell you, you're being too erudite.
Yes, that would be good. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So the other area that I was talking about was something, the idea that you should be able to take your retirement from job to job, right?
Yes.
And now difficult, because if you take, sometimes the business that you're at says, we don't want you, we're going to give you the money, like that $2,000. So what we're going to try to do is say that $2,000 should go to your next job, and you don't get that $2,000. It will go automatically from one back office, like to the next back office, and you don't have to touch it at all. It will not go, it won't go to a check from you. It will just go from, pretend you're working at McDonald's, it will go from McDonald's to wherever you're working next, to the hairdresser or to whoever is running the next person's retirement plan, so that you don't have to deal with it. Because if you deal with it, you have to pay taxes on it, because it comes into your clutches. But if it goes from one back office to the other back office, you don't have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Was that clear?
Yeah, that's clear. Even if I'm working with a large firm and I change to go to another firm, that might happen.
It does. If it's a big firm or a little firm, the minute you start to deal with it, it becomes very complicated. A, you have to start to pay taxes on it, and B, you have to remember to put it someplace. And sometimes you forget, or you don't do it in time, and it becomes difficult. So I'm trying to make it as automatic as possible.
So what is the status in terms of where it is now, and what else has to be done so that it's global?
So I'm trying to get regulations changed. So it says, please, that right now, the next business does not have to take that money. There's no rule that says business number, the second business has to take the money. So I'm trying to get a rule changed that says that second business has to take your money.
So as an advocacy organization, is there anything that we should be doing as an advocacy organization?
Not at the moment, but when it becomes closer to actually getting at least a draft rule written, there will probably be something you can do. I have to work a little further on that. But thank you for asking me.
Mm-hmm. And then you had another area too. You had, at least, did you cover all three of your areas?
Yes, and the other area, I think the other area that would be interesting for you to keep thinking about is there are questions about how you can, there are issues around what we did in Maryland is really interesting around the issue of the Social Security bridge. And so you might want to think about how you can support those ideas in businesses, because there are other businesses that have 401k plans, and are they making it easy for people to do a Social Security bridge? You might ask them if they're doing that easily. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because they could. And the second thing that might be easy for you could ask businesses, what we did in Maryland is the first $1,000 that people save, we make it an emergency. We don't put it right away into a retirement plan. We put it into an emergency savings, so that if you have something that you need right away you have something for an emergency problem like healthcare, or your car breaks down, or your child needs help, because so many people have an emergency and they don't have any savings for that emergency. And if you put it into your savings account and you take it out, you usually get penalized. So we want to be able to have people have money for an emergency and not get penalized.
Mm-hmm.
So those are things that in your organization, you can work with businesses that when they set up their 401k plans, they could do Social Security bridges, and they can do emergency savings.
There are a lot of poor people of all groups in this country, believe it or not. Is there any refuge for poor people, even though they may not have had big jobs, or anybody considering that? Or if I didn't have a 401k, what do I do? Or what could I do? I'm living, I'm paying, I'm barely getting enough food during the week. But we have a large group of older people and a lot of poor people.
Yes, well, I think for poor people, when I was on the board, I was chair for a while of the Kennedy School Innovations in Government Award.
Right.
And in San Francisco, they had an interesting plan, which is to give every newborn child a savings bond. Have you heard about that?
No, but that sure sounds interesting. And I'm sure it sounds interesting to all of the people who may be on this webinar.
Yes. So you may want to look into that some more, because they gave everybody a savings bond. I can't remember how much it was for. Maybe it was $50, maybe it was $100, so that every child got a certain amount of money that was born, which meant that every family opened a bank account for that child. Mm-hmm. And many families, as you know, have never opened a bank account. Mm-hmm. And that bank account grows. Mm-hmm. And so for the first time in the lives of many children, for the first time, they had a bank account, and second of all, it could grow over time. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a very interesting and very cool idea. And there is the treasurer of Connecticut, Sean Wooden, is also doing something on bonds, which I could put you in touch with him. I don't know if you know Sean Wooden, but he's the treasurer of Connecticut. I was just with him in Hartford on other issues, but he's looking into that. But those are two ideas that I think are very, very interesting on that subject.
Mm-hmm. Somebody sent in a question in the beginning on 401k. I don't know what that question was. I know, Mr. Johannes, do you know what that question was? I don't know if he could hear me.
The issue now, well, we can talk about it. The issue is, do people have a 401k? Mm-hmm. And the challenge, of course, is, as I said, half of all Americans don't have a 401k. And I can tell you about, what is a poll? Yes. The people who are on this phone call, more than twice as many have one than don't. 182 out of 1,000. How many attendees are there? Are there really 1,000 attendees? That's a lot.
There are 178 attendees, and 71% of them have a 401k plan.
How many attendees? 182. How many attendees?
178.
Okay. That's a lot of attendees. And how many have? That's great. So this is, so your audience is a much higher audience. Your audience has a much higher percentage of people who have 401k plans than the audience of African American women by and large, because normally it's only 27% of the general population of African American women have retirement plans. But that would make sense, because this is going to be a fairly much more educated and well-off audience. So that's very good and well done. I mean, this would be an audience that probably has good jobs, is educated, and because you're educated, you go have jobs that have retirement plans. So that would make sense, and that's terrific. And if you have a 401k, it means that the employer also contributes, which is also really great. So
But
really.
If our people are going to, a lot of our people are in what we call sections and affiliates in organizations. So what kind of a message would you give our members who are on what kind of message would you give them that they could use in terms of helping other people in their communities? I know everything, but could you put it in a concise way?
Sure. I think there are two things that I could say that are pretty simple. For those who are not as fortunate as your members, there is a saver's credit, which are for the less fortunate, which means that the federal government provides a credit for those who save, and they could look into that. That's number one. And two, there's a group called Wiser, which is a women's advocacy group to help people retire. And the statistics on the Wiser has put together, which is people who go to a seminar about savings save more, their savings rate goes up 30%. So the more that you actually learn about savings and putting together a budget, the better off you are. The third thing that they've shown is that most African Americans don't trust the financial sector, and they particularly don't trust the financial sector if they don't look like people like themselves. Mm-hmm. They trust people who look and have experiences like themselves. Mm-hmm. So if your members can help other African American women, that's the best thing they can do, because the studies show that people like to trust people like themselves. And therefore, if they can learn themselves how to help others put together a budget, that's the best thing they can do, because the statistics on what a single seminar can do in learning to put together a budget are absolutely stunning in the ability to increase your retirement income and your well-being.
I think also it needs to start with children, because even if you put aside $1 a month or a little bit, start saving at an early age.
Yes, it does help. But you have to, but it helps if you, the studies also show you have to do it with actual money. In other words, it can't be theoretical with the children. It helps if you actually give them the dollar.
Yeah, that's what I meant. They have to have the money and start saving. That's at an early age, at a very early age.
If you could actually raise some money and give them the $5 and bring them to the bank and open the bank account. In other words, it has to be practical. It can't be theoretical. Mm-hmm. That's what is the best thing to do. Very hands-on, real, not theoretical.
Could you go back to the savings credit for poor people? I've never heard about it, but I guess a lot of people in the audience may have. But I've never heard of the savers credit for poor people.
Oh, so well, there is a savers credit. Basically it's a refundable savers credit. If you save, you get a credit, and it goes up to, I think, $70,000. I mean, it goes up, it's based on your income, and if you save, you get a credit. So you have, it's based on your tax returns, and you should, I mean, basically, when you do your tax return, I mean, I can't say more than that, which is basically when you do your tax returns, if you go to a HR block, I think they can help you figure out if you're eligible to take the saver's credit. The truth is, most people just take the overall deduction, so they don't probably want to get the saver's credit, you know, because you get a deduction. But there is now there is a saver's credit, and you can get it if you want to get it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's could be useful. I mean, it's worth looking into.
Mhm. And a little bit more about the advocacy group, the Wiser advocacy group. Could you tell us a little
Yes.
bit more?
So Wiser is an advocacy group. It's located in Washington, D.C., and it is it's terrific. I mean, it's really good. The problem with it right now, to tell you the truth, is because of COVID. It's WISER. You can look it up. And Patricia Willoughby, who was I'll just tell you, who is the lobbyist and a vice president at the NAACP, has been on the board of Wiser for the last 25 years. They're very good on advocacy. They're very good on helping women. They have a list, I have to tell you, of 25 things that are really good for women, that would be useful for women. I think there were more hands-on before the they were
COVID.
much more hands-on before the pandemic, before COVID. They're just not in the office in the way they once were,
Mhm.
in part because some of the people's family got sick, and so they're not there. But I would, if anybody's really interested in more information, I found them to be the most useful and helpful group on actual what is the most useful thing for me, or how can I get help?
Mhm.
WISER.
Mhm. Mhm. That's interesting. That's interesting. So I don't know.
I mean, where they're located for you, Thelma, just because they're in Washington, they're like on K Street, K in Connecticut, just so you know.
Okay.
Just if you're ever, I mean, they're really great, but they're just not around very much.
Mhm. Mhm. But it is a resource.
It's a total resource, and they have really good materials.
Because we look for new resources, and we have such a wide, diverse population. And you said maybe everybody on this call may be highly educated,
Yeah.
but people in our organization run the gamut, because we represent women. We don't represent women just because they've been to college.
Yeah.
We represent women, period. So, but the people on this call may take the information you are giving us and utilize it to in some way impact the people throughout the communities where they live.
Right. Well, I think Wiser would be a very good, I mean, there's one page, they have a whole page of things that can be helpful. So I think that would be great.
Well, I think you've given us excellent information all the way through.
Right.
I applaud you for being in the role that you're in, and for looking out for all of us, all across the country. You're looking at, you're looking out for everybody. I don't know if there's anything, I don't know if we're taking questions at all or not. Mr. Johannes, you didn't explain that to me, so I don't know if you're taking questions.
Yes, ma'am. We have some questions from the audience. They've been typing in our Q&A, so we've
Okay.
been able to filter
Mhm.
them and ask appropriately.
So you can throw them out because I don't see them.
All right. First of all, I say that we put the link to Wiser in the chat so everybody can actually access it.
Oh, good.
The first question is, you were talking about a bill that you were hoping to push. What would be the name or the structure around that so that people can follow that?
Oh, that is going to actually, it's a regulation. So I will, when I get it, we're just we're in the preliminary stages. So when I get it, I will tell Thelma and she'll let you know.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay.
And we'll send it out. Whatever you send back, it will be distributed.
Yes. Yeah.
The next question is there are penalties for employers who steal people's retirement money?
Yes, there is. And if you know anything about that, it's the Department of Labor, which is where I am. There's a part of the department called the EBSA, the Employee Benefit part of the department, and they have a lot of enforcement, and they look into that. So if you know anything about it, please let them know or let me know, and I'll give you my email and get you in touch with the right people.
Okay, the next question comes from a federal employee.
What?
The next question comes from a federal employee.
Yes.
Are there retirement savings funds for other avenues that motivate individuals to invest in financial security?
Are there any savings funds?
Could you read that again, Mr. Johannes? Because
Yes, ma'am. Basically, what they're asking for is how do we motivate individuals to invest in their financial security?
Oh,
well, I think the best way to motivate really is to have automatic deductions at work and automatic escalations. The best way is to just do it for you. That's the best way. That's what a defined benefit plan was. That was a pension. It was just done automatically. You didn't really have much choice, and it happened. And when you retired, you got a paycheck for the rest of your life. That's the easiest. The second easiest is in the defined contribution plan, they just take the money out of your paycheck and then they escalate it up to 15%. That's the easiest and the most effective way to do it. The truth is what they're doing now is they give you tax breaks, but they give most of the tax breaks to the top 10%. And it's really unfair because the top 10% don't need the tax breaks. We're giving all these tax breaks to the richest people, and we're not helping the 90%. 90% of all the tax breaks for retirement go to the richest 10% and not to the 90% who really need help. So our tax structure is completely mixed up, which is not what you thought I was going to say tonight, but it happens to be the truth.
Mm-hmm. And I think the question also said something about motivating, but I think just seminars like this may help to motivate people.
Yeah, the motivation, if you're talking about motivation, it's what I said about the other motivation comes, as I said, if people talk to somebody and they look like that person, they've had a similar experience, and they are listening and they don't look like they're being self-righteous and they're sympathetic. And it's very important if you have the right attitude. Thank you.
Okay. I'm trying to consolidate some of these questions so we don't have so many. Is the TSP the same as a 401k?
Yes, that TSP is a 401k. Exactly right. The TSP is the federal savings plan, and the TSP is a fabulous savings plan because, just so you know, because the TSP has so many people in it, because there's so many federal employees, our fees are very small. So if you're a federal employee, you're very, very, very lucky because you have very low fees. If you're in a small business, you have much higher fees because there are only few people. So that, remember when I talked about the small businesses, it's much more expensive to set up a 401k plan when you're in a small business because you have fewer employees, it costs more money, and you have much higher fees. That's really one of the unfair things about life. If you're in the federal government, you have so many people, you have the economies of scale.
Are there programs in other states like the one?
I will tell you about a piece of legislation that has been introduced, which has been introduced, and it's a bipartisan piece of legislation, and it's for low-income people to give you a tax credit to low-income people who can then buy into the TSP system, which would help them. They would get a tax credit. They could get into the TSP system, which is the lowest fees, and then they could save in a very good system, and they would be able to be part of a savings system, which would make them, the estimate is that, half of all Americans don't save in the stock market. But if they could save in the TSP system, by the time they retire, if you conclude, if you have both the TSP plus your Social Security, they would retire with what would be a combined amount of money of $600,000 retirement, which would, as you can imagine, be a really good retirement. And then you would not have the poverty in retirement that we have now. And that is, I don't have the name of the bill, but the woman who is in the woman's bill, it's called Teresa Ghilarducci. And the person who has introduced the bill is Senator Higginbottom from Colorado and Senator Tom Tillis. It's their bill. And you may look into it because it's a really interesting, and Terry Sewell, Congressman Sewell, and Congressman Schmucker from, so that's an interesting bill. I should have mentioned that. That's a very interesting bill because it's for low-income people, and it would be transformational.
And it is bipartisan, so it might go through.
And it is bipartisan. It is bipartisan.
Mhm.
So I should have mentioned that. Yeah.
Are there other states that have programs like the Maryland Saves you spoke about?
Yes, the other states that have it are, the three that are up and running already are California, Illinois, and Oregon. And I'll just give you some statistics about Oregon. Oregon, the Pew Trust has studied Oregon, and 80% of the businesses, employers like it, 80%. And 80% have said that it hasn't cost them any money, which is terrific. And the employees also like it. And in Illinois, the employees, in a similar thing, have said it has created a great sense of financial security, which is nice.
Mhm.
So they've done some studies about it. So those are really up and running. It's just starting in Maryland, as I said, this month, and it's starting in Connecticut, I think in January, next January. And it just was passed, as I said, in Delaware 2 days ago.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
So those are the things that are going on. I mean, the point is, there's a lot of recognition that we've got a crisis in retirement. And there's now new laws that 8 years ago they weren't around. So there's a huge shift in the psychology of whether we should pass legislation on retirement that was not even part of the landscape 8 years ago.
Mhm.
You're on the cutting edge of knowing all of this, you guys.
Well, we all hope to be on the cutting edge with people like you we know who can bring us the information, who can motivate us and connect us to the resources and all of that. And we appreciate that very, very much. I think this has been very helpful. Are there some other pressing questions, Mr. Johannes, or are they?
A couple more questions, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
There was a list of 25 things that women should know, and also what can women do now during the pandemic to help their financial health?
Are you asking me?
That's the question.
Read it again.
I said, what are the things that people can do while they're at home still during the pandemic that can help their position in what they're doing now as far as their financial health? Or what's a couple things that you wish every woman would know to do to make their life better in this area?
What was the 25 list that you said in the
Well,
beginning?
you know what? If the truth is, what I am primarily interested in policy and in passing legislation. If you're interested in the 25 things you can do, what I would do is look up the Wiser list, because they do have the long list of what you can do as an individual. And that's what I would suggest, because I've read that, but that's not what I don't do is the 25 things. That's not what I'm as good at figuring out. I have to admit that. But that's what they do a really good job. So I would look up their Wiser list. And if you can't find it, tell Dr. Daley and I will get you the paper, because they very nicely gave it to me, and it's really a great paper.
Mhm. I think the key thing that you just reiterated is that you're working on policy.
Yeah, I'm doing policy, and I'm not doing the individual, but they do individual help, and they're really good, and they're really smart, and they do both policy and individual help. So that's what I would look at that. I don't have that paper with me because I'm at home right now, but they're really, really great. And I'm sorry that I don't have it. Next time I do these kind of seminars, I'll make sure I have it for you.
But I want to pick up on two prongs you just said. First of all, you've given us some resources. But for the mere fact that you're working on policies and whatever you send us, that we can help advocate for what you're doing, which is very important, because we know how to advocate at all levels.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the way we can support what you are doing, so that it's reciprocal. Mm-hmm.
That would be great. Oh, can I just tell you one more thing? I am having these round tables around the country. And as you know, we did one in Hartford. We're going to do one in Wichita on July 10th. We're going to do one in Cape Cod on August 10th. I mean, August 10th. One in Cape Cod on August 23rd. One in Jackson, Mississippi at the Civil Rights Museum on September 27th. And one in Albuquerque, New Mexico on September 20th. So if any of your group would like to come to any of these and either testify or be on a panel or come and listen, I would love you to come.
I think what we did the other time, and maybe we did it late, but when you were in Hartford,
yeah,
we did notify members of our affiliates and also our state leaders to get people there, but it got out late. But we could also circulate those dates, and also if we have on there where we could send names of people who want, if they have to sign up ahead of time to testify, right. we could be the connector for you in those states.
That would be great. So maybe I'll send that to you directly.
Mm-hmm. So, Mr. Johannes, are there any questions that you can put together, or have we just about asked most of the questions?
Last question. Is it a federal or state law that prevents employees from combining their retirement funds when they move to a different job?
It's not. It's neither a state nor a federal law. It's just obstructiveness and difficulty. Mm. It's like mud in the system. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's just difficulty. It's a system that grew up not coordinated. So it's not laws, it's just a bad system.
But that's something you're working on, right?
I'm trying to make it smooth
Okay.
after the mud,
Mhm.
if you get my drift.
Yes. Well, mud can be dissolved.
Yes, I'm trying to wash it away. Thank you.
Yes. So, do you want to summarize in any way? It's been a joy being with you.
I am, can I just tell you, I love being with you. I love being with the Council of Negro Women. I feel so comfortable and happy being with these great women who have made history, who continue to make history, who see what is needed in this country and have the heart and soul to keep fighting for it and never give up. And I'm glad that in my struggles, you keep giving me inspiration on all sorts of ways. Thank you.
Gee, you've touched me. You've touched me. I want to thank our audience for being on tonight. I want to thank them for sending in their questions. I want to thank staff for helping us to maneuver electronically. But I want to come back to you, the Honorable Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. Kathleen, it's an honor to have you with us. It's an honor for all that you've done all across the world, because you worked in Africa and all over, and you've been on so many boards like the Export-Import Bank, and you've been on Hopkins Board of Advanced International Studies, and you've even worked with the Baltimore Urban League and Shepherd Pratt and all of that. But yet you still remain connected. I said in the beginning, you remain humble, you remain approachable, and you're always willing to share. And tonight has been a terrific night for us to have, first of all, to have the daughter of former Senator Robert Kennedy with us. It is an honor. I don't want to make you sad, but he was just such a terrific person. I'd have to say that.
He was.
I think that you too are a terrific person, since I've known you through the years. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the National Council of Negro Women, its board, its staff, all of its members, for being with us tonight and for sharing with us. And I know that if you have something you want us to do, just send it over to us.
Thank you.
We'll try to see what we can do. But I would like for all of the people out there who can applaud, and you can't see them, but you can see me applauding for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending this hour with us. It's been very beneficial, and we thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take good care.
Take care and enjoy what you're doing. Thank you.
Enjoy.